And welcome back, New York sports fans, to an episode of New York State of Sports here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all of the sports. Ricky K here with you, episode 71, our last episode of 2024. And of course, the Giants and Jets give us stuff to talk about. The Giants decide that yesterday was the day they're going to win. And now the number one pick doesn't look like it's going to happen. Is this a loss for the franchise, a win for the franchise? What does it really mean? Gosh, the Colts are terrible. We'll talk about that. The Jets get blown out in Buffalo, but there's a report that Aaron Rodgers could come back, but Garrett Wilson could go. Does that really make sense? Or is any quarterback being better than Garrett Wilson staying here? We'll talk the Knicks reaching a great milestone before the 2 years. They have won 7 in a row. We'll talk the Rangers continuing to lose, continuing to quit, continuing to be an embarrassment. We will talk bowl games, 2 wins, 1 loss amongst the bowl games, and we will look back at our top 10 sports moments in the New York, New Jersey area in 2024. Moments, storylines, however you want to go about it. Feel free to chime in throughout the show with your favorite New York moment and New York storyline of 2024. We're going to ring in the new year well. We're going to do it coming up in just a minute here on IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. We will be right back. Of course, welcome back to New York State of Sports, episode 71. Can't believe we've done 71 episodes this past year. Hopefully, we'll do another 70 plus more going into next year. Ricky K back with you again. Got some cool new things here in the studio setup. It's my girlfriend's birthday tomorrow, hence the birthday banner behind me. We had a fun party last night. Got some cool holiday gifts to show off, including my brother sending this awesome New York State of Sports coaster. That was pretty cool. I did really enjoy that. A lot else going on here as we head into 2025. A lot of exciting things. I want to remind you, of course, you can follow us on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube at IE Sports Radio. We have a cool community that we set up on X. So if you want to chime in with us, talk about the sports games, storylines, any hot takes that you might have, we want to hear from you in that community. You can remember all of our shows are on YouTube. So if you like and subscribe, you can get notifications on all those upcoming shows. We've got a couple of cool new shows coming up, including our new Buffalo show that we're excited about. Want to remind you, of course, if you missed any portion of this show, you can download it, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch any of our shows at any time. If you want to learn more about me, learn more about the show itself, iesportsradio.com/New York State of Sports. Of course, this show and myself are also a finalist for the IE Sports Radio Hall of Fame. It is a really cool honor, but I will, of course, ask all of you, if you head to my Twitter account or the show's Twitter account, which is at NY State Sports IE, at NY State Sports IE, or my own account at Rickinator555, cast your vote. If you like this show, support the show, feel free to send your vote, but I appreciate being amongst the awesome finalists here on the network. And it's been a really fun last year here at IE Sports Radio, and we're going to do some great things in 2025. We got, of course, chime in here in the chat. Taryn Rodriguez is here. Taryn, how are you? Got to send in my bowl playoff picks that start the quarterfinals tomorrow. That should be a lot of fun. And we'll do some college football, of course, in our lead block and recapping some of the bowl games for Syracuse, Rutgers, and Army. Some good games for sure, but we'll take our first break. Got you here from the good folks at Planet Jerky and from our newest sponsor, Vital Apparel. And we will talk Giants and winning while losing. It's rare you see that, but that's the case in New York sports, it seems, at least in football. in 2024. We'll take our first break and we'll come back in just a couple minutes.
Hi, eSports Radio fans. This show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm, Single A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clinking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. iSports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
Thanks to the great folks over at Planet Jerky, rigging the new year with some awesome snacks, some premium brisket jerky, some great flavors, and of course, shout out to our newest sponsors, Vital Apparel. Get the new year started, and of course, with some awesome gym wear, and it helps a great cause in mental health research, which, of course, the time of the holidays, always an important time to check in on your mental health. Ricky K back with you here on the network as we get set to talk about the New York Football Giants, who have been really interesting to talk about this year. And it's a game they're facing the Colts. Anthony Richardson was ruled out a day or two before the game. So Joe Flacco, who of course is very famous in New York sports circles, gets to start. And even then, I was kind of looking at this game this week and I said, the Giants have a chance to win if they play their cards wrong. And I say play their cards wrong because yes, you'll see the title of the show, when a win is a loss. And that's kind of what I felt yesterday watching that football game. And look, before we start ripping this organization, I want to give credit to the players because you can't sit there and blame the players for wanting to win. Like you read the comments from Jermaine Illuminor, who said this one's for the fans, even though the fans might disagree with him. You read Wandale Robinson saying coaches aren't talking about this stuff, and they're not. I mean, the fact of the matter is half of these players aren't going to be here next year. I mean, you look at this Giants roster. I was looking it up yesterday, and there's a great tweet I found. Only 2 players have played every game this year. So it's been a really rough year. Those 2 players, Brian Burns being one, and I believe Roten's the other one. So you've got 2 players that, again, they played in every game. So a lot of injuries on this team, a lot of dysfunction with this team. And there's just been nothing going right. So to have those players at least avoid 2 miserable milestones that would have happened if they lost yesterday. If they did lose, they would have had an 11-game losing streak, and it would have been the first time in NFL history a team would have gone 0-9 at home. Remember, now with the 17-game schedule, you'll get every other year you'll have 9 home games. So that was on the table yesterday. And the Giants avoided that, and the Colts kind of helped them out. Joe Flacco throwing 2 interceptions, one early in the game, one late in the game. It took him a while to figure out, hey, Jonathan Taylor's your best weapon. He had 32 carries for $125 and 2 touchdowns. But Giants got Drew Lock's best game of his career. 17 of 23, 309 yards, 4 touchdowns. I was looking this up yesterday because I was like, I've never seen Drew Lock play this well. I think he had like 7 games in college where he threw 5 or more touchdowns. He had 5 total yesterday when you count the run at the end of the game. A lot of those games against like Division I AA, FCS. There was like a game against Connecticut thrown in there. I think only 5 touchdown game against a Power 4 was Arkansas. So that was Drew Lock has had a game like that in probably years. And for a guy who's gone through a lot this year, that had to feel great for him. Malik Neighbors, a fantastic game yesterday. 8 targets, 7 catches, 171 yards, passes 1,000 yards on the season, 2 touchdowns, including that 59-yarder in the third quarter. And every time the Colts got back in the game, remember the Giants led 28-13 in the third on the touchdown return by Morset. Colts rallied to cut it to 2, and then Neighbors gets the catch and run for a touchdown. Colts had cut it to 2, and then Giants get down the field. Locke runs it in for a score. Gano tacks on the field goal at the end. But as great as you feel, as those Giant players feel, the fans are like, what the hell happened? Because now they are no longer controlling the number 1 pick. All they had to do was lose 2 games, and they get to pick whoever they want in the draft. Now, you're staring at the number 4 pick. Meaning, when you look at the draft order right now, the Patriots would be number 1, Tennessee would be number 2, and Cleveland would be number 3. You're looking at 2 teams in front of you in Tennessee and Cleveland that are going to need quarterbacks. So unless you trade up, you're not going to get Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward in this draft. And the Giants play Week 18 against the Eagles Sunday, 1 o'clock on Fox. And Tanner McKee could be starting. Remember, Kenny Pickett left the game yesterday. Jalen Hurts still concussion protocol. Eagles don't need the game. So Philly's going to play a lot of their backups. The only big storyline in that game is going to be Saquon being 101 yards shy of breaking Eric Dickerson's rushing record, which I think he should go for because he had 167 yards against the Giants in Week 7. You're telling me he can't have 100 yards and a half? I don't need him to play the whole game, but I need him to play a half. I think as much as Saquon wants that Super Bowl, there has to be a part of him that wants to break this record against the New York Giants to kind of show, hey, maybe you shouldn't have passed on me. But the question is, why does this win feel like a loss? And the reason this is because at least if you're going to lose, at least, well, the teams don't believe in tanking and players don't believe in tanking. I understand fans that just want teams to lose. And you're telling me that you waited all this long to put together your best game of the year. The last time the Giants had put up this well of an offensive game was 2019. They haven't played this well on offense for Brian Daboll ever. And they picked the one game that they needed to lose. Now, I was talking with an Indie Sports Nation host, the big GM, yesterday, and I said, that's how bad the Colts are. Colts are average, probably below average. And Joe Flacco was going to be the one that gifted, as I tweeted yesterday on NY State Sports IE, Joe Flacco is going to be the one that gifted the Giants a win they didn't want. Like, that's where this situation is because, look, you need a quarterback because now you're staring at the possibility of paying Sam Darnold $50 million a year. You're staring at the possibility of having to go get Kirk Cousins, a bridge quarterback, if you will. And bridge quarterbacks are okay, but this team is further along where a bridge quarterback isn't going to get you where you want to go. So for the long-term future of this franchise, look, they screwed this up a couple years ago, and they kind of lucked out the fact that Chase Young hasn't been what people expected him to be. So you get that. But now you're talking about getting a quarterback, getting the piece of your franchise, getting the cornerstone piece of your franchise. The Giants don't have many of those. Now, this year they've been fortunate. Neighbors has looked to be a really good player. Tyrone Tracy, outside of the fumbles, has had a really good first year at the running back position. So there's at least pieces you could grow from. But when you're talking about potentially missing out, and this quarterback class isn't as strong as last year's quarterback class, but missing out on these guys. Now you have to use draft capital. And the question John Mara has to ask himself yesterday is, how does he feel? I think John Mara, part of him is relieved that the losing streak is over. I think John Mara knows what he's going to do next week. This time next week, hopefully, we'll have some Black Monday news on the Giants, either head coach or GM search or vice versa, because I was listening to Get Up today and was talking, they might keep both Shane and Dable. And I would be really surprised by that and honestly disappointed. I don't care about the continuity. I don't care about John Mara feeling that he has to keep guys together just to save the perception that that he's quick at firing people. This has been a really awful year. And at some point, people got to pay. And that, to me, is the sad future, the sad state of where the Giants are. Has Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll earned the right to pick the next great piece of this franchise? That's what you have to ask yourself. And I've been saying for the last couple weeks, I don't think either of them have. But I'm not the owner. I don't make that call. So to me, yesterday, that's a loss for the Giants. It's a win on the score sheet, but you can't mess this up. And it's harder to tank in the NFL than the NBA because guys are going to fight every blood, sweat, and tear, and you understand that. That's more the front office and the coaches. Probably front office more so because some of these coaches aren't going to be back next year, I don't think. But we'll see what the Giants decide to do next week. I'm really intrigued because you look at the quarterback situation. Shedeur Sanders didn't have a great bowl game against BYU. He played every down, you give him credit. And then you had Cam Ward, who plays the first half of the Pop-Tarts Bowl against Iowa State, breaks the Division I, the FBS football passing touchdown record in a career 156 passing Case Keenum, and then takes himself out of the game. So when you're talking, I guess it's not a playoff bowl, and I get it, and it's not going to be a big deal, but could it have at least been reported or talked about this week that Cam Ward was only going to play the first half? Because that's a bad look for Cam Ward to do that. It just is. Because you're kind of just saying, I want to get the record and then get out. And I always talk about, well, Saquon's got to do that. But the Eagles could even say, hey, we're keeping Saquon in, try to break this record. And if he doesn't, we'll take him out. Like, you can have that kind of honesty. The fact that that wasn't there and Mario Cristobal doesn't even talk about it. And this day and age of NIL, who knows? That doesn't mean I wouldn't draft Cam Ward. But now if the Giants want these guys, they're going to have to make trades. And I don't know if I want Joe Schoen making those trades because listen to Hard Knocks last year with the Patriots stuff. I just don't trust him to make those moves. I think they've got to make a change. We'll see if they do that. Now to the Jets, who go to Buffalo yesterday, get the doors blown off, and they're down 40-0. Tyrod Taylor came in and at least got them some points. It was an absolute dumpster fire. And that's an embarrassment for the Jets because the Patriots, you saw went in there the week before, took a 14-0 lead. They lost the game, but at least they were competitive. The Jets weren't competitive. And they had some dumb mistakes. They made 16 penalties for 120 yards. They've been a bad team in terms of penalties all year long. Aaron Rodgers got no protection from the offensive line. He gets sacked 4 times, throws 2 interceptions, has a dumb, unsportsmanlike conduct penalty where he shoves the guy out of bounds that leads to the Bills scoring a touchdown. Josh Allen didn't even have a great game. He threw for 182 and 2 touchdowns. But by Josh Allen standards, it's not a game that pops off the stat sheet. But the Bills had so much short fields that they were going to score at will. And the Jets looked like a team that's looking to get to Cancun. The Jets looked like a team that wants the season to be over. And it's going to be over next week. I mean, they're playing the Dolphins Sunday, 4:25 on CBS. Well, I think actually the game is on Fox, so disregard that. It's on Fox next week, this Sunday. Dolphins have everything to play for. If they win and the Broncos lose, they get into the playoffs. Even though Tua stinks in cold weather and he missed this past week against Cleveland with an injury, who has confidence the Jets going to go in there and actually win this game? Aaron Rodgers is still 1 touchdown shy of 500, and I think he's going to get it. He also broke a record for being the quarterback most sacked in NFL history yesterday, so at least he broke some kind of record. But that's an embarrassment they put on the football field. And for a team just to not even try, they tried, but not even be competitive, that's concerning to me. Now, Garrett Wilson did get a touchdown from Tyrod Taylor. And there was a report yesterday from Ian Rappaport from NFL Network that said if the Jets keep Aaron Rodgers going into next year, and you look at the quarterback situation right now, we talk about the Giants. The Jets right now would pick 7th. They're not in really a position to pick a quarterback in the first round. There's a chance that they could keep Rodgers and Garrett Wilson could want out. Because you're keeping Rodgers, you're keeping Devontae Adams, you're keeping his buddy. Garrett Wilson is 24 years old. He's a cornerstone piece of this franchise. So the Jets have to ask themselves, is it worth keeping the 42-year-old quarterback and making him happy again and new regime and all that stuff? Or is it worth keeping the 24-year-old wide receiver who may not be a superstar, but he's close? He's definitely one of the top wide receivers in the game and has a really bright future. And has gone through so much with this organization. Him, Breece Hall, Sauce Gardner, that's got to be the pieces that help the Jets get back to where they're supposed to be and break this drought of 14 straight years not making the playoffs. So you've got to sit there if you're the Jets. It doesn't matter. They're the team, I think, that more so needs the bridge quarterback. Because if you have the bridge quarterback with the right leadership in place, you could win. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is that guy. The problem is I don't think anybody else is going to want Aaron Rodgers enough to make the Jets have to make that move. And a lot's going to happen based on the head coach search, based on the GM search. Now, there was some head coach news today. Rex Ryan was on the DiPietro and Rothenberg show on ESPN New York and said that he will be talking with the Jets after the end of the season because obviously Jeff Ulbrich still has one more week to coach. Then it'll be officially let go. Then you'll see the Jets talk to more people about the coaching search. But Rex Ryan will be on that list. The other guy that was reported by Tom Pelissero is Ron Rivera. And I kind of get the Ron Rivera interview because you look at the job he did in Carolina getting to the Super Bowl. You look at the job he did in Washington. Now, Dan Quinn has taken that a step further. But you look at Ron Rivera at least putting the pieces in place, and there were some good years at Washington. They got to the playoffs in 2020. He at least knows how to be a part of a culture change, and the Jets need a culture change. Would he be my top candidate? No, but I get why the Jets are at least reaching out to Ron Rivera, who's a year removed from the game. You'll see other names like we've seen Pete Carroll, who's a year removed from the game, being thrown out there for the Bears job. We're going to dive into all this next week. We'll look into head coaches. We'll look at general managers. We'll kind of start surveying the landscape as more news comes out and more firings happen because the Jets have been on this search for a while. But both New York franchises in football are just in the complete opposite direction. They're not doing what they need to do. And to me, that's a big concern. More so the Giants because the Jets were, you look at the state of the NFL, the fact that there's a 4-12 team that's picking right now 9th. There's 9 teams with 4 fewer wins in the NFL. And I don't know what the parity is and what the NFL wants, but half the teams have a losing record. To me, that's the product to me is mediocre right now. And I've said that. I think that's a bigger concern for the league. That, yes, this could be also the first time if the Bucs and Dolphins win Sunday, that if they both get in the playoffs, that you won't have more than 4 different teams get in from the year before. It hasn't happened since 1990, so I don't really know if that's good or bad for the league. That's up to you guys to figure out at home. We'll take another break. We'll come back. We'll talk Knicks winning 7 in a row, a great Christmas win against the Spurs. We'll talk Nets making a trade and what their long-term future might be with all the assets they have at their disposal. You're listening to New York State Sports Night Sports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. We'll be right back after this.
Hey there, IE Sports Radio fans. Be sure to check out our sponsor, Seal the Deal Wax Seals by Cecilia B. You just finished your very own wedding or baby shower invitations and you're looking for that extra special touch? Maybe you just wrote a letter to a relative or a friend and you want to add to their smile when they receive it. Then seal the deal with Cecilia's handmade sealing wax stamps for your invitations, letters, and gifts. You bring the deal, we'll bring the seal. You can find them on Instagram at sealthedeal_wax stamps and on Facebook, Seal the Deal Wax Seals.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the IE Sports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
Hey sports fans, are you in the market for Florida sports or just keeping up with the latest in the Panhandle? Palm Tree Sports is a dedicated audio hub to all things sports in the Sunshine State. We cover current events, big news, heavily favored opinions all across the NFL, NBA, MLB, and so much more. So come check us out every Saturday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a down south education on Florida sports and athletics. It's hosted by yours truly, Corey Pujols, and is powered by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Welcome back to New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio, direct feed for all that is sports. Ricky K with you, episode 71. Just finished wrapping up with some football talk, which I didn't get into the cleats by Shedeur Sanders, which he wore in the Alamo Bowl. I don't know if Deion's going to pull some Archie Manning stuff. So that's also a factor to look at, but that was kind of like a desperation, pick me. I don't know if Shedeur is kind of happy about maybe being in Tennessee or Cleveland. But again, Giants don't control that destiny, at least right now. Even if the Patriots play backups or beat the Bills backups or Tennessee beats Houston's backups, Cleveland's not beating the Ravens. I saw the Ravens are almost like 20-point favorites right now. There's no shot. So the Giants blew that. To me, the Giants blew that opportunity. Their best chance is maybe picking second. But let's talk about the Knicks, who actually know how to win. 7 straight games the Knicks have won. They're 22-10 on the season. They're going to wrap up 2024 with a game in Washington tonight against the Wizards. But there's been a Knicks team that has been really fun to watch offensively. In these last few games, they've really put some signature games together. You start Christmas Day against the Spurs, which was the opening start to the year. And it was a really fun game because Victor Wembanyama put on an absolute show, 42 points, 18 rebounds. He was basically making every shot, including 6 3-pointers. I was watching a little bit on the Disney alternate cast before I went to see my friends and family for the holidays. And it was a really fun atmosphere at the Garden because Wembanyama is a future MVP. I think we all know that. And the Knicks didn't get great games from Jalen Brunson. He was 7 for 23. Karl Anthony Towns and foul trouble most of the day, but that was the Mikal Bridges show. He was 17 of 25 from the floor, 6 of 9 from 3. His three-point percentage has been much better in December, so we can talk about those bad three-point motion and all those experiments Bridges was doing. But in the end, it's worked from 41 points. And the Knicks actually reached a milestone this past week. They're the first team in NBA history to have 4 players score 40 or more points in a game before the new year. So in the last 3 months, you have had Brunson, Towns, Bridges, and OG Anunoby score 40 points in the game. I mean, that's where this offense has been. And people talk about the defensive lapses, but to me, as I've said all year, that you can fix defense. But the offensive connection that all these guys have had, and people worried about that with the loss of DiVincenzo, the loss of Randall, and they beat the Spurs, even the other night with the Wizards, when we'll talk about, with only getting production from 7 guys. Now, they'll get some more production as Landry Shamet's back in the mix, and we'll see how he gets rolled in. But you can have Brunson have an off night or Towns have an off night, and then somebody's there to pick up the slack. I think that's what makes this team a special group. You look at Friday against the Magic. You could say the Knicks maybe have a letdown game. They score 32 in the fourth quarter. They outscore Orlando 54-31 in the second half. Brunson has 26. Josh Hart delivers with 13 rebounds to go with 23 points. And the Knicks win a game where they only make 4 3-pointers. They've dominated Orlando so far this year. I mean, if they think right now, it's early, but if you played Orlando in the playoffs, even though the Magic haven't been healthy, that's a matchup I think you feel confident with. And then you go to Saturday. Knicks are playing the Wizards. Wizards don't have Jordan Poole. You think this would be easy. It's not. The Wizards are 5-24. They're a mess. Former St. John's, the brother of St. John's great Julian Champagnie, who's Spurs Justin Champagnie, goes for 31-10. Knicks look like it's going to be a rough night for them. And then Jalen Brunson just puts the team on his back and says, I'm going to go win this game. 55 points, 9 assists. He's had 3 50-plus point games in his Knicks career. I mean, he has been sensational. Cat goes for 30 and 14, but you see why the Knicks want Jalen Brunson to be the cornerstone of this franchise. And for the Knicks to get that lucky and to find him, to have him grow into this star, I mean, that's been fun. Because you could say, hey, it's an embarrassment to lose to the Wizards, but those kind of games happen in the NBA. The Wizards were making basically everything 50. They were 51.5% shooting. Champagnie was 13-15. For some reason, he didn't get the ball down the stretch, which was crazy for Washington. But the Knicks go into this year 22-10. And right now, they're just a game out of second place. The Knicks and Celtics have been each 22-9 since that opening game. So the Knicks have matched the Celtics. Nobody's been matching Cleveland. Cleveland's 27-4. But the Knicks have put themselves in a really good position, having that run similar to what happened last year. And you're seeing with OG healthy and everybody in the mix that this is a different team from an offensive and defensive standpoint. They'll play the Wizards tonight. They will play Utah on Wednesday at the Garden, and then they will go to Oklahoma City, who has been red hot. I think the Thunder are 26-5. They've won 11 in a row, so that should be a fun litmus test game Friday night, and then they will be at Chicago on Saturday. So that's your Knicks schedule for the upcoming week. And then we get to the Nets, who continue to make, I'll say, interesting moves. It was announced on Sunday that they make the trade with the Lakers. They give up Dorian Finney-Smith, who is a good defender, can also give him a little shot selection. And you saw Jordi Fernandez yesterday when the Nets blew that game against Orlando, saying, well, if we had Dorian Finney-Smith, we would have won. They trade Dorian Finney-Smith. They get 3 second-rounders back, and they get D'Angelo Russell back, who is going to at least help with Cam Thomas. I think that's going to be an interesting combination to watch. We all know Ben Simmons has a tough time staying on the court, so at least Russell, which had his moments with the Lakers, but not too many moments. He comes here, maybe tries to boost his value a little bit for free agency. Next year, it's an expiring contract, but the big picture is where the Brooklyn Nets are as a franchise. And I think what Sean Marks looked at as, look, Jordi Fernandez has gotten a lot of this group. The Nets are 12-20, but they're only 2 games out of a play-in spot. I think the problem for Fernandez is the Nets were too good, because everybody wants to be in the Cooper Flag and the Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper sweepstakes, and to keep those assets. And they've got a lot of assets. We'll dive into that in a minute, but people wanted them to be Wizards bad. and Raptors bad and Charlotte Hornets bad. Those teams have 7 or fewer wins going into 2025. The Nets aren't that. They fight every game. They give a really good competitive effort. Even though they've lost a couple and 7 of their last 10, they're in every game they're practicing, the exception of a game or two. And you're seeing guys traded off before the deadline. Deadline, by the way, I think is February 6th, so still a month to go for that. Cam Johnson, you've got to think would be next and on that list. But you look at where the Nets are. They have 31 draft picks over the next 7 years. They have 15 first rounders and 16 second rounders. So Sean Marks has the opportunity to really change this franchise. They could go for a superstar. They maybe want to go to Brook, go for 2 superstars. Or you draft a cornerstone piece. I saw you look at the Thunder. Let's take their situation, for example. Getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander back for the Clippers in the Paul George deal and using him as the cornerstone piece. So there's so many creative ways the Nets can go because they're going to be the ones with all the cards. They're going to be the ones that could get a disgruntled superstar to Brooklyn. And you've seen you can have success in Brooklyn. It may not be the success necessarily that you're looking for, but at the same time, it could be, well, maybe you get a guy that gets comfortable playing in Brooklyn. You throw a couple role players with him. You find some pieces that could work, and it can happen. It's not going to be an overnight fix, but they have all the assets you can ask for, and they're going to get more. The only thing I was upset with this trade is you didn't get a first rounder back. But when you consider they have 15 first rounders, you don't really necessarily have to get a first rounder in every deal. The Nets this week lost to the Spurs on Friday, beat Milwaukee on the road Thursday, which was a nice win, 111-105. The Bucks didn't have Giannis or Lillard, so you take that for what it's worth. But they blow the game in Orlando yesterday. They could have won. They'll be at the Raptors on Wednesday, at the Bucks on Thursday. A lot of games to the Bucks. And then home to Philly on Saturday. Philly right now is ahead of them in the standings in the 11th, 12th spot. But we'll see who the Nets are. But I think they have a very bright future. But I understand the fan base. It's like, yeah, we talked about tanking earlier, and it's clear the front office is putting that in a position. And you can understand why Fernandez is like, you know what, I'm trying to win games. And the Nets at least have shown a very good competitiveness that they've got a shot to be keeping things rolling. A team that hasn't been competitive and has been practically an embarrassment. And you could do a 30 for 30 on what's happened for them this calendar year as the New York Rangers. It's just been a joke. And I get they don't want to fire Peter Laviolette, and I understand it's not all his fault. This is a player's issue. I was reading a column from Larry Brooks in the New York Post yesterday and said the Rangers have really been an embarrassment of the logo. They made an embarrassment of the fans that paid top dollar to go watch them play. And it's really just, okay, changes aren't going to come. You've got to just play better. They've made changes to power play. They tried that. They got embarrassed by the Devils last Monday, 5-0. We got off the air. And then they get the holiday break, and they go play the Lightning, and the Lightning score 5 goals in the first period and a half. The Rangers lose 6-2. Igor gets pulled. The defense is a joke. You got Keandre Miller basically saying when the Rangers get down, they feel out of the game. So when they get down a goal or two, they quit. That's basically what Keandre Miller just said. And look, the players have been just really an abject failure because the Rangers right now are in last place in the Metro. And we're going to do our top 10 moments coming up in the next segment of the year. One of them is the Rangers. This team made the conference final last year, won the President's Trophy. They're in last place. Last place. And it's not that they're losing. It's that they're getting the doors blown off them every game. They're not even in it with like an empty net in the third period where they can fight back and scratch and claw and they do different things. And they're forcing fights to try to get sparks and just nothing's working. And they've tried everything. They're taking Meek off the power play. They're benching guys. They're trading guys. And just quite simply, the players got to be better. They got to be better. And to me, it's like you can get rid of. To me, the thing is you got to get rid of Chris Drury at some point because this is his failure. This is a front office failure. They've changed the coaches for these guys. They've changed everything for these guys. Nothing works. And it's frustrating to watch if you're a Ranger fan because you think about what this core was supposed to be. And this core is going to go down as a failure. It really isn't. It's sad. They're going to play Florida tonight. Would be shocked if they won that game. And then they got the Bruins at home on Thursday. The Capitals on the road Saturday. Capitals getting Ovechkin back. And then they're at Chicago on Sunday. The Blackhawks are not good, but the Rangers lost them the last time at home. So who knows? But really disappointing on that front. As for the other locals, Devils and Islanders each had home and homes this week. Devils split with Carolina, and the Islanders split with the Penguins. So where that puts both those teams right now, the Devils are 1 point ahead of Washington for the top spot in the Metro. Islanders are 2 points ahead of the Rangers in terms of staying out of last. If you look at the wild card, the Islanders are only 5 points out of a playoff spot. Rangers are 7 points out of a playoff spot. Ottawa is the team right now in that second wild card as we head into January. Schedules for both those teams. Devils are out west. They will be at Anaheim on Tuesday, at the Kings on Wednesday, at the Sharks on Saturday. And then we'll get to the Islanders schedule. The Islanders are at the Maple Leafs tomorrow afternoon. They are home to the Maple Leafs on Thursday. It's an ESPN Plus game. And then they are at the Bruins on Sunday. Get to a couple of our comments here on the YouTube channel. Ralph is in the house. He's listening to the Mike Tomlin press conference. The Steelers ruined part of Ralph's Christmas the other day. But he's right. New York hockey is just not good right now. Devils, as I've said, have saved a lot of this. And we're going to get into the storylines in our final segment. But Sheldon Keefe, hiring him as the head coach and bringing some consistency to this young team, really is one of those storylines that goes under the radar. But the Devils are going to be one of those fun teams to watch in the early portion of 2025 because they've got two good stars, Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier. They're getting good, consistent goaltending from Markstrom and Jake Allen. Their defense is better. They made changes that, and just the chemistry is there. Like, you watch that game Monday at Prudential. The Devils look like a team that's having more fun. The Rangers look like a team that's going through the motions. Like, the Devils have really made the Rangers look like fools over the last couple times. The last two times the Devils have played the Rangers, they've outscored them 10-1. 10-1. You can't look at it yourself in the mirror if you're a player and fix things off that. Maybe just the Rangers core is too old. That just could be the case. So we'll take one more break. We will come back and we will talk about college football. We'll talk about the bowl games. We will talk about and then we will wrap it up with some college basketball and my top 10 sports moments from the year that was in New York, New Jersey sports. I'm going to give you some honorable mentions, and then we'll get into the top 10. Feel free to chime in here on YouTube what you think is the top 10. You're listening to New York Sports and iSports Radio, direct feed for all the sports. One more segment here to wrap up the new year after this.
Hello, sports fans. It's me, your boy Larry B, and I want to walk you through the world of sports. No, not just the mainstream major TV deal type sports, although those are important too. But let me be your guide through your journey of all sports, from college to the pros, the minors, and everything in between. Each week, we are talking sports galore with true diehards just like you from a hardcore fan's perspective that's sure to quench your thirst around leagues you may know all too well and some you may even discover here. That's right, sports fans. If you love sports of all kinds, enjoy hearing amazing sports stories, and respect all sports because you know how difficult any of them can be to play or compete in, then this is your show. Join me, your boy Larry B, on The Defining Moment each week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports, and let the sports come to you.
What's up, Pittsburgh? This is Ralph Calise, the host of the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Are you that passionate, diehard Steelers, Penguins, Pirates, or just a Pittsburgh sports fan? Then please join me on the Injury Report every Tuesday on IE Sports Radio, the direct feed for all that is sports. And I will update you on all that's black and gold and have you telling your Pittsburgh fans and friends what's up with Pittsburgh sports. Tune in Tuesday with me, Ralph Calise, the Injury Report on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. Let's go!
Everybody, this is Darren Rodriguez. Are you a fan of volleyball? Are you a fan of Thunderous Spikes? Then I have the show for you, Set Point, where I cover NCAA men's and women's volleyball, high school boys and girls volleyball, beach volleyball, and even professional volleyball. Catch the action every week here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
One more segment here in 2024. Ricky K back with you here on New York State Sports and IE Sports Radio. Be sure to check out some of our awesome shows in New York, especially my good friend and local buddy Ralph from the Injury Report, covering some Pittsburgh sports. He's in the Hall of Fame here at IE Sports Radio. I'm hoping to get there, so please go to @McMayer555 at NY State Sports IE. Find the link, cast your vote. What's one of my fun moments this year was getting a chance to go to a playoff game, Mets playoff game, Game 5 of the NLCS with Ralph. I'll definitely remember that. It's part of my year that was. And we're going to get into the year that was at New York, New Jersey sports in our final part of this segment. So stay tuned for that. And again, here on YouTube, send your thoughts. What's your favorite moment in the year that was in New York sports? But let's talk first quickly some bowl games. Mixed bag for the local Division I FBS football teams. Let's start with Syracuse in the Holiday Bowl against Washington State. And look, this is a game Syracuse was supposed to win. Washington State, with what was left of their team, you didn't expect that much to happen with this group. But Kyle McCord put on an absolute show. It was so much fun to watch what he was able to do in this football game. Just an absolute clinic, being able to win this game 52-35, your final. McCord 24-34, 453, 5 touchdown passes. Breaks Deshaun Watson's ACC passing record. So congratulations to McCord. LaQuint Allen had 120 yards rushing and 2 touchdowns. Just an all-out good effort by Syracuse. Their stars played. Gadsden even played and had 2 touchdowns. Trevor Pena, who's going to be a big leader for this team next year, he had 2 touchdowns. Even though the Cougars, I thought, put up a really good fight considering the state of their football team. Syracuse ends the year with 10 wins, so a very good performance. Very good first year for Fran Brown. You could tell that the players really love having him as a head coach. So congrats to Syracuse. They get the win there. Rutgers was in the Rate Bowl against Kansas State out in Arizona. Kaminungai didn't play. Really good, high-paced, good offensive game. Rutgers saw some good things from Antoine Raymond, the running back, 18 carries, 113 yards, 3 touchdowns. Scarlet Knights were in command in this game. They were up 34-17 midway through the third, and then everything just collapsed. Kansas State was able to break through. Dylan Edwards was the story in this game, K-State's running back. He had 18 carries, 196 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Kansas State as a team ran for 347 yards, averaged 8 yards a carry. Avery Johnson with 3 touchdowns, despite only completing 50% of his passes. So not the greatest year for Craig Schiano. He does get Rutgers to a bowl game, which is a big deal, but to have a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter slip away when you can end the year strong with 8 wins, a little bit disappointing from Rutgers. And then Army in the Independence Bowl against Louisiana Tech, did what we thought they would do, and that was destroy Louisiana Tech 27-6. Bryson Daly, 27 carries, 127 yards, 3 touchdowns, ends the season with 32 total touchdowns. Just a really good season for him. We talked about him coming in the top 6 in the Heisman Trophy. And just the game, Louisiana Tech could not do anything in terms of running the football, just 49 yards rushing. And again, you give him credit for at least stepping up and playing in this bowl game when Marshall opted out, but was not shocked to see Louisiana Tech lose this game. So Army ends the year with 12 wins. So despite losing to Navy, pretty good for that franchise to get some wins. We'll talk college basketball. That's going to be a lot of the focus now because college football kind of gets in the rearview mirror because at least locally we don't have any really teams to keep a focus on. So a lot of the college focus on this show for the next few months is going to be college basketball. And it starts tomorrow afternoon. St. John's takes on Creighton. St. John's beat Delaware over the weekend, so they're 11-2. They're at Creighton, 4 o'clock on Peacock. And I love what Greg McDermott said about St. John's. That's the Creighton head coach. St. John's, in his mind, is 2 baskets away from being a top 5 team. Their only losses are to Baylor, who's ranked, and Georgia, who has 1 loss right now. So really big game. St. John's a chance to start Big East play 3-0, something they haven't done in almost 25 years. So this is a really big win. Last year they went to Creighton and had a chance to win, couldn't get it done. Creighton is not the same team they've been in past years. They've had some injuries. It is still a road game. It is still tricky to win on the road in the Big East, but a chance for a milestone win for St. John's if they can get it tomorrow. They will be home against Butler on Saturday. Big one tonight locally in the Big Ten. There's a 5 o'clock game on the Big Ten Network. It's not a Big Ten conference game, but Rutgers is at home against Columbia. Columbia is 11-1, by the way. They are playing some really good basketball in the Ivy League. And right now, Rutgers is favored by 10.5. Columbia has been putting up a ton of points. The only loss was to Albany earlier this month. Rutgers maybe gets caught looking ahead, but Rutgers did lose to Princeton. So I would expect a much better effort from the Scarlet Knights in this one, but should be a fun one locally if you look for something to watch tonight. And then Rutgers will resume Big Ten play Thursday at Indiana. That is an 8:30 game on Peacock. Indiana is 10-3. In terms of other teams locally in the Big East, Seton Hall is at Xavier tomorrow. That's a 2 o'clock game on Peacock. And then they are against DePaul next Wednesday. So it's their only game this week. And then Syracuse hosts Wake Forest Tuesday at 2 o'clock. That game on ESPN2. Cuse had one game this week. They took on Bucknell. They won 75-63. So again, they're at home against Wake tonight. And then they are, let's see if they got another game this week here on the docket. They are at Florida State. That game is Saturday, 6 o'clock on the ACC network. Seminoles are 9-4. So let's get into this as we wrap up this final episode of the year. My top New York sports moments in 2024. Now, I was thinking about this all week. This is a really tough list. I mentioned some of the honorable mentions in terms of Sheldon Keefe as Devils head coach. There's a couple other ones I had on the list that I had a really tough time taking out. I was talking with some friends and going over this list. Seton Hall winning the NIT was one I thought about putting on here. Good year for the Pirates and Shaheen Holloway. Getting that done despite missing the tournament. That was on this list. Syracuse beating Miami, upsetting the Canes, ending their playoff chances, getting Clemson to the ACC championship. A signature win for Syracuse and Fran Brown in year one. That was on this list. Did not quite make it. NYCFC making the playoffs and firing their coach. That was on this list. But only 10 could make the cut. We kind of make it 10.5. And I'll explain why in a second. So let's start with number 10. Number 10 is the Giants' hard knocks / Jets dysfunction. We had to throw the football teams in here some way. But really, the Giants' offseason and the turmoil of this year began with the hard knocks and kind of exposing Joe Shane and Brian Dable, the whole Saquon stuff, Xavier McKinney, seeing what they were doing in free agency, seeing how badly they wanted to get rid of Daniel Jones, but they couldn't get a replacement for Daniel Jones, so they were stuck with him. And seeing John Mara saying, I don't want Saquon to haunt us, and Saquon ends up having the year he's having with Philadelphia. That kind of bled into this year and kind of really made us look at the Giants totally different than we've had over the last couple of years. And then the Jets dysfunction. Robert Saleh is gone after week 5 as the head coach. Joe Douglas was gone as the GM shortly thereafter. The Jets are making so many penalties. We talked about at the beginning of the show. They look like nothing of a franchise. There's a report by Dan Rossini last week he talked about Madden ratings influencing decisions. For a year, the Jets were supposed to at least make the playoffs. To end up maybe only winning 4 games is really a disappointment. It should be higher on this list, but to me, both New York football teams and their bad 2024s would be at number 10. Number 9, I went different here. Columbia football. Now, it was announced last week that last week or 2 weeks ago that the Ivy League was going to get a bid in the FCS tournament in the future for college football. But nevertheless, Columbia winning the Ivy League for the first time since 1961. That's a big, big thing for the Lions. We talked about how good their basketball team has been, 11-1 so far in the year. So Columbia Sports is having a really good 2024, but their football team winning a league that you should see Harvard or Yale or one of those teams win to capture a milestone that hasn't done in a long time. How to make this list. That's why it's number 9. Number 8, the New York Red Bulls. Getting to the MLS Cup as a 7 seed. They beat NYCFC in the first Hudson River Derby playoff matchup. Red Bulls team that was good to begin the year, battled some injuries, guys going to play internationally in some tournaments. They had a lot of draws in the summer, and you wondered what this team was going to be. And then you get Emil Forsberg back, and you get the sweep of the Columbus Crew, the defending champions, the win over NYCFC, then going to Orlando in the conference final, getting a goal in the second half to win that game. Carlos Coronel was fantastic in goal. And for Red Bulls team, is still waiting for that first title, just to have that improbable run. Sandro Schwartz and his team did a really good job. It's one of the younger teams in MLS. So for them to have that milestone of a season, and they're going to definitely build on that in years to come. And I think they'll get that title in short order. But to get that far, that has them at number 8. Number 7, so we talked about earlier, an Army. 12 wins, Bryson Daly finishing in the top 6 in the Heisman. And in year 1 of the American to win the American Conference Championship, dominated Tulane, who was a high-powered offense going into that game. There are only 2 losses coming to Notre Dame at Yankee Stadium, who's in the college football quarterfinal, and losing to Navy. And Navy beat Oklahoma in their bowl game. They had a really good year. So the Service Academy did some good things. But this is the year that Army was really in the national spotlight. Something that hasn't happened in a long time. Jeff Monken's club did a really fantastic job. That's why Monken was probably up for some head coaching searches. His staff is now part of different coaching opportunities. You saw Udo, their running back. He's going to transfer to Arizona State. So Army getting really in the national spotlight, to me, puts them on this list. So they're number 7. Number 6, it's the Chris Kreider natural hat trick that sent the Rangers to the conference final against the Hurricanes. Well, beating the Hurricanes. And think about the moment that happened and why that's such a big deal. The Rangers were staring at possibly going from being up 3-0 in that series to heading home for a Game 7 to avoid another one of those New York 3-0 collapses that we saw with the Yankees in 2004. And you wonder, maybe if that doesn't happen, the Rangers make changes to this core earlier than they should have. But still, Chris Kreider for a moment looked like he was going to be in the Raptor, and his number is going to get retired. And now he's been in trade rumors over the last few months. So it's been a really interesting year for Chris Kreider. I do think he's going to go down as one of the more memorable Rangers, at least in recent lore. But in that moment in particular, really, I remember doing the post game after that game and saying Chris Kreider etched his name in Ranger history, and he did. But if the Rangers had finished it off and got to a Stanley Cup, maybe this moment is a little bit higher. But to me, it's number 6. Number 5, the Dante DiVincenzo double bang against the 76ers. Knicks, of course, got all the way to the Eastern Conference semifinals. They lost to the Pacers in Game 7, but were battling so many injuries. But considering the Knicks looked like they were going to lose that Game 2 against the Sixers, they get the steal. DiVincenzo hits the 3. That was a really fun Sixers series. Remember, the Knicks had a rally in Game 4, a great performance by Brunson. They lose Game 5 at home thanks to Tyrese Maxey, but then rally in Game 6. Josh Hart with the big shot at the end. But just that whole Knicks-Sixers series was so much fun. But DiVincenzo, even though he's no longer here, gets a Knick moment of his own. And he was a really good role player for this team. So I'll put him at number 5. Number 4, we have a title on the list, and that is the Liberty winning the WNBA championship. First title for an original WNBA franchise, winning Game 5 in overtime against the Minnesota Lynx, having 20,000 plus people at the Barclays Center was a fantastic moment. Sabrina Ionescu, of course, we later found out was playing through injury. She hit the memorable shot in Game 3 to get the Liberty up 2-1 in their series, that three-pointer that quieted that Minnesota crowd. Breanna Stewart comes here and gets a championship. Jonquel Jones winning the finals MVP. Just a really fun run and really got the city sparked with women's basketball. And you think about the growth of WNBA this year with Caitlin Clark and all those things. Look, the Liberty are going to be around and have a chance to go back-to-back next year, despite losing Kayla Thornton to the new expansion team, the Valkyries. So we're going to talk about a lot of Liberty next summer. And we gave them a lot of focal point this year and rightfully deserved. So congrats to the Liberty, of course, in that title. They're number 4. Number 3 is the OMG Mets. Of course, the Jose Iglesias song is They Make the NLCS. You can have a lot of different Met moments on this list. And a lot of people on Twitter reached out with the specific ones. The Pete Alonso home run against the Brewers, against Devin Williams to stay alive in Game 3 and win that game in Milwaukee. The Francisco Lindor grand slam against the Phillies to lift them to the NLCS. You had the crazy Game 163 in Atlanta, where back and forth and Lindor ends up hitting the home run in that game to get the Mets into the postseason. Look, this is the Met team that wasn't supposed to do that much in 2023 or 2024. Carlos Mendoza comes in, brings in a bunch of former Yankees, and they accomplished something that nobody really thought they could do with the rotation that would take a lot of chances on with Minaya, Severino, and to lose Kodai Senga in spring training and to really get where they were. That was a example of what team chemistry can do. And the Mets found that because they were 0-5 to begin the year. And they were a team that looked dead to rights in late May when you had Jorge Lopez throwing the glove in the stands. They wondered what this team was actually going to be. Were they going to sell again? So for them to get to the Final Four and lose to the team that won the World Series, you can see why this franchise has a lot of hope going forward with David Stearns running the ship. And, of course, Steve Cohen is the owner. So putting that at number 3. Number 2, the Yankees don't win the World Series, but they get there. And that's thanks to Juan Soto, the Game 5 home run in Cleveland off of Hunter Gaddis. Kind of exemplified what Juan Soto is as a player, battling at bats, knowing that he wasn't going to get beat by another fastball. Made Gaddis pay with the home run to center. That series against Cleveland had so many great games. Giancarlo Stanton had big home runs. Aaron Judge hitting the home run off Emmanuel Clase in a game that Cleveland eventually went on to win. But that was a fun series. It was a series put you on the edge of your seat every game. But Juan Soto, in his only year in the Bronx, really had some highlights. This was really, to me, the big highlights. That's number 2. And finally, number 1, Juan Soto chooses the Mets. It was kind of weird to have an off-the-field storyline be number 1 because there's been so many good New York moments this year. I mean, I could talk about it where we've done so many Rangers post games and Knicks post games. And unfortunately, with my personal stuff going on this year in terms of my life changes, we didn't get to do Yankee post games or Met post games during the postseason. But Juan Soto, to me, picking the Mets, and yes, you can talk about it with the money being the difference. You can talk about the Mets were the more desperate team in the situation, but you rarely ever saw a player say, I'd rather play in Queens than play in the Bronx. And it really puts the Mets now on that, maybe not above the Yankees, but on that level playing field. They can compete with the big free agents too, and to take one of their own. Usually you would see the Yankees come in and swoop the Mets players away. Now you're seeing a team player going to the Mets and swooping away from the Yankees. I mean, that's a milestone. The Yankees have done a good job at their plan B. We've talked about it with Fried and Bellinger and Goldschmidt and Devin Williams. But the Mets get that player they're looking for, and they're still out there on the market. I mean, we didn't talk about it on this show, but the Mets tried to get Teoscar Hernandez. Ultimately, he went back to the Dodgers, but they're still making efforts to improve that outfield, and that would have been a big thing if they got Hernandez. Maybe they're in on the Santander stuff. Who knows? But it's going to be so much fun loading into the new year with the Yankees and the Mets. What they decide to do, there's still Alex Bregman out there. There's still Pete Alonso out there. There's still Nolan Arenado out there. There's a lot of free agents going into January. But as you wrap up this new year, this old year that was my first full year here at IE Sports Radio. It's been so much fun. And I just thank you guys, the listeners. I mean, this is a project I took on. I've done podcasts about different teams, different sports in the past, but I've never done a regional show where I'm doing a bunch of sports and covering an area. And I love New York, moving to New Jersey as well has been part of my home. And I've been glad to have you come into my home every week and talk about some New York sports. It's been so much fun. I thank Larry B for bringing me in. I've really been a big part of this network's growth over the last year. I know it's only going to get better as you go into 2025 with all these new hosts and new shows, and getting to be a part of even the 3 and Out stuff during the college football season has been fun. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this show can do. We're going to try to do some big things in 2025. Hopefully maybe get some interviews, which can be really cool. And we'll have some fun along the way. And hey, we got coasters now. So we are really pushing it into the future here over the next year. So hope that you and your family have a safe and healthy new year. The Giants I don't know how you're thinking at home. Again, a win that feels like a loss. Now the Giants have to hope they get some help to get a top 2 pick, or we're talking Sam Darnold, or we're talking trades next week. As we will look next week, we will look ahead to the offseason for both the Giants and the Jets. It'll be Black Monday, so we'll have more information on who the Jets look for at GM and head coach. We'll have more info on if the Giants are making a change at GM or head coach. So much next week to get into with that. The Knicks will try to keep their win streak going. Rangers try to actually get some wins. College basketball, of course, will be in the full swing over the next few months. We get closer to March Madness. We're only 2 months away from that. Even baseball, we're only about 6 or 7 weeks away from spring training. There's still a lot going on. Still a lot of big free agents out there. We saw Corbin Burns go to Arizona, which was kind of a surprise for the pitching market, but the Mets, I'm sure, will be looking into some different things. The Yankees, I'm sure, will be looking into some different things as their rosters for 2025 start to take shape. 2025 is going to be fun. We're going to have 2 baseball teams in the mix. Knicks should be in the mix for a championship. Devils should be in the mix to do some good things if they get into the playoffs. Liberty get a chance at a championship. We'll see if St. John's can provide some fun. That was another storyline I didn't think of. 25 years since they made a Big East tournament semifinal, they did that. So that was, I think, fun for the locals. And the Giants and Jets potentially with 2 top 10 picks in the draft again, making the NFL draft relevant here locally in April. There's so much to get into. Thank you again all for tuning in. It's been so much fun. Have a safe and happy new year, and I will see you in 2025. Until then, so long, everybody.